morning. It's Viewpoint. And to my right is the daughter of our co-host, Judy Busby, has since Bowns. Her mother is still on a very much needed sabbatical. And next week, she'll be back here in the studios. She's going to run you out of here, kid.
She is, and I'll be glad when she gets home.
The good news is that I'm going to slip out of here, and so you will take my place. So we have a mother and daughter team, and that's going to work very well, Mr. Ash. Chris, we always start the Viewpoint program with the kudo that we try to find somebody or some organization that has done a little something extra over and above and that we're impressed about and so forth. And we're going to turn the kudo business over to Cynthia this morning. Go ahead, Cinth.
Well, I'm going to sound like my mother touting ALMH Hospital. First, as a very small community, we are blessed to have a hospital. Monday, I had an outpatient procedure in the spa, which is the special procedures area, and the staff, the service, answering all of your questions, it was fabulous. And John, who was my nurse, I just want to say thank you. And again, kudos to the spa area and all the people associated with the spa and the operating room. Thank you.
Well done. And that's obviously a well-deserved kudo for the folks over there. You know, we really have a great facility there in that hospital. They got a lot to offer. And next week, we will have Todd Morning in talking about their rehab services again. They have something new in there again. Always on the cutting edge out there. I'd like to give a little shout-out for the Carroll Catholic School Mardi Gras, which is coming up here on Saturday, or the 18th, I believe. And we had Father Lively and, my goodness gracious, I've got absolutely blank.
When you get older, nouns go first.
What day is it today?
I don't know.
Well, in any event, seriously, this is a fundraiser for Carroll Catholic School, and they're really working hard. Wayne Cox just came to me. I had an epiphany. He and Dr. Melissa Cox and a bunch of folks there at Carroll Catholic in the jurisdiction of Father Lively are really working hard to put on a fundraiser for Carroll Catholic. And again, that date is Saturday, the 18th of February. Unfortunately, we're going to be out of town. Can't do that. But put that on your plans, folks. Be sure and get over there to Carroll Catholic. And if you have any questions, you can certainly check in with Father Lively. That is a Fat Tuesday style on Saturday. Instead of Tuesday, we're going to be on Saturday, the 18th. So, Carroll Catholic Mardi Gras. Now, young lady, I don't think I have anything to grump about this morning.
That's a good thing.
I would like to once more give a shout out for the Wounded Warrior Project. Those of you with computers, or Google it up, woundedwarrior.org or .com. I've forgotten, one of the two, and find out more about that Wounded Warrior Project and think a minute about maybe being of some help to them. Why don't you introduce our guest this morning, my dear?
I would be happy to do that. I would like to introduce Chris Gramm, who is an attorney who is running for circuit judge of 5 counties.
Yes, ma'am, the 11th Judicial Circuit.
Now, don't worry about that microphone. Just speak right up to it there and pull it a little closer to you. You'll be fine. That'll be great.
Sure.
There we go. So, we're happy to have you with us this morning, Mr. Gramm. Besides a practicing attorney, you have kind of an interesting background. I want to get into that in a little bit with your foreign experience over in Japan. Well, maybe we ought to just jump right into that to start with.
Alrighty.
You went to Japan as a young man.
Yes, sir. When
so tell us about that experience and how you got there, sir.
Well, when Mitsubishi put their factory up in Normal, they gave McLean County high school students a scholarship to spend the summer in Japan through Youth for Understanding. It was a wonderful experience. So I grew up in Gridley, which is probably one of the smallest towns in McLean County, and ended up in Tokyo, Japan, one of the largest cities in the world, for the summer when I was 17. So it was a real big eye-opener for me.
Culture shock going from Gridley to Tokyo.
Yes, sir.
How long were you there then, sir?
Well, that summer it was a 2-month program, and when I got back home, I was enrolled at ISU to go to college, and I saw a study abroad poster up at the school, and decided, wow, I need to investigate that so I can get back over there and learn more about that place. And was able to do a study abroad through Illinois State at Nanzan University in Nagoya, Japan.
How fascinating.
And in the process of that, of course, obviously at that time while you were there, you became pretty doggone fluent in Japanese.
Yes, sir.
Like anything else, if you don't do it every day, sometimes it gets away from you.
If you
don't.
It's
You have a number of folks up there in Mitsubishi, so perhaps has that helped you as far as an attorney? Client relationships are concerned because of that background?
Well, I have had a couple of clients that were Japanese that had gotten a DUI or into some scrape, and they did seek me out for that reason. They enjoyed being able to talk about their case directly with somebody who could speak their language. Absolutely.
How did you go on with the cuisine over there? I have a friend who thinks that's just about the epitome of all eating.
Well,
I'm not sure I agree.
I took a liking to what they might refer to as kiddie food. A lot of the curry rice and things is popular among young children, and so I would stock up on that. Being the landlubber I am, I wasn't really into the whole raw fish scene.
Not a sushi espionado, huh?
Not from Central Illinois, no, sir.
Tell me about their culture over there. Seemingly ultra polite society. Is that a correct assumption?
It is a totally correct assumption. It's one of the things that actually makes the language a little bit easier than you might think to pick up, because the greetings and the spoken word is relatively formal, and so as with any culture, there's slang with young people, and it is one thing, but in the business world, everything's very formal and almost predictable in terms of conversation.
We could use a little more civility around here, Cynthia.
Yes.
That's what I've told you several times.
No, it'd be nice.
Talk to your Uncle Bill a little more civil.
Something about being nice to your elders.
Now, let's get into the practice of the law, sir. Tell us about how long you've been practicing, and do you put an emphasis on a particular phase of the law?
Well, I've been licensed since 2001, and I started out my career in the McLean County State's Attorney's Office as an assistant state's attorney. That led to a familiarity with criminal and traffic laws, and that has been the main thrust of my practice.
As a practicing attorney, sir, do you have a comment, or do you feel like you want to make a comment on the question of tort reform?
Well, tort reform is an issue that's very important to conservatives, and I assure you I'm a conservative, but
I knew he was a nice guy.
It would be, you have to think about what does tort reform mean for a second, and a lot of times caps and different things are associated with that, and those would be legislative issues, not something that you'd want a judicial candidate to address.
I don't want to take the line here. You go ahead and jump in there with questions.
The question I was going to ask is, you've obviously sat on both sides of the table. You've been a prosecutor and you've been a defense attorney. Which do you like better, or the differences?
Well, certainly enforcing the law or playing for the home team, if you will, was a rewarding experience all by itself, and certainly if there were a clear-cut career path in that direction, I would have certainly followed it. In terms of remuneration in the business of law, you just about have to be in private practice. So I've been having a great time with that. I love my clients, and it's been a rewarding experience for me.
Go ahead, Gabe. I was just going to comment, since that given my makeup, it'd be very difficult for Billy to be a defense attorney for somebody who's a real out-and-out bad person. And they are out there. The law says they have to be defended. That's kind of too bad, but that's the way it is. That's the law. It would be very difficult for me to defend somebody who I knew doggone well was guilty of sin. How do you rationalize that? It's a job. That's your job, and you put those personal feelings aside, and I presume, and they just try to act from strictly a professional standpoint.
Certainly, Bill. The Sixth Amendment guarantees that the right to an attorney, and if we believe in our Constitution and our rights as citizens, as men and women, in fact, it's key to the system that people be able to mount a defense and make sure that their rights are protected. If we have some in society whose rights end up not being protected, then you and I are next, whether we want to think about it that way or not.
He used a magic phrase, protect the Constitution. There are those out there who have kind of forgotten how that works.
That is very, very true. But I think that was a good question, because I think of the time that I spend in the courtroom, and if I was ever going to go back to school, I don't think I could be a defense. I could be the guardian ad litem. I could be for the state. I would have a hard time properly defending parents. And I think it's important to know your shortfalls, where your biases are.
Well, of course, that brings to the front the degree of professionalism that has to be evidenced as you serve clients like that. It's as simple as that, I guess. But it makes the average guy on the street think, why in the world are we spending that money? Case in point, this terrible tragedy over in Beeson, and it's going to go on a long time before that gets resolved. And that's costing the taxpayers tons of money and takes up lots of time. But that's, happily, we have a Constitution where they don't just summarily make judgment on you and take you out and put you away.
Due process of law. Yes, sir.
Have you had, in the course of your practice, anything unusual that has come up, Mr. Gramm?
Oh, probably not so much here in central Illinois. We're on the interstates, and so I've had a NFL player or something like that come through, but nothing totally off the wall. No.
I guess it's inevitable when you're going to have your shingle out, you're going to have something unusual walk in someday, and you wonder, why am I practicing law? If you were to sit on the court, your jurisdiction then is as described, and the odds are that you probably would not be on the bench in Golden County very much if you were elected.
Right. That judicial assignment is completely up to the chief
judge.
Chief Judge of the circuit, who is currently Judge Elizabeth Robb.
An outstanding lady, yeah.
And she gets to make up the assignments. Presumably, the assignment would be to Bloomington, though.
Do you plan to go back in the future to? Well, as a matter of fact, you have a lady that you met in Japan, who's the mother of your children.
Yes, sir.
And smart enough to marry that young girl and bring her back here. Now, as a personal, just a quick aside, it just comes to me. Did she get married? Did you get married in Japan as well as United States?
Actually, we did get married in Japan, and the process of doing so took us to the U.S. consulate in Osaka to sort of make it official in both places.
So you will obviously be time to time go back to her homeland.
Yes, sir. After the election, we plan to take the kids over to see their grandparents.
Was there one thing that you came away with from your 5 or 6 years in Japan that really made it, besides finding a bride, made an impact on you and both as your profession now, as you practice it, or while you were a student?
Well, the Japanese work ethic is really, really impressive, and whether it was when I was 17 and hanging out with students that were deep into their studies, or whether it was when I was in my 20s and working for businessmen, even their government employees were very diligent people, and I admire their work ethic, and I consider myself a hard worker.
Well, as I look at your education and experience, you've done a lot of things, and some of them not like real glamorous. Detasseling. Talk to any kid that's done that. Not fun. Can you talk about, you obviously were in business and then decided to switch hats?
Well, it's like anything else with the detasseling. It's what you made of it, and I think it served me better to be out in the cornfields and in front of the TV. Certainly, I wish I were down watching baseball, but what can you do about that as a young kid? In terms of law being my second career, sure, I was in Japan. We were thinking about starting a family, and we wanted the black dirt and the green grass for our kids, and law seemed to be a natural career transition that would allow us to come back and provide for the family.
So did you specialize in like business law when you were in law school?
Well, actually, I did focus on business and transactional type things in law school with the thought that I may end up with a boutique firm handling Japanese clientele. But it just turned out that my first job out of law school ended up being the McLean County State's Attorney's Office, and I was right back home. So things worked out well.
At what point in your young life did you decide that you wanted to be an attorney, sir?
Well, when my folks learned I liked to argue with them, that's what they kind of wanted for me from probably the time I was about 7. In my undergrad, I did have sort of a pre-law sequence,
yeah.
But the Japanese culture and business had caught my eye. It was a time when the Japanese were supposedly dominating, much like the Chinese are today.
Yes.
And I wanted to know a little bit more about that.
I had that at my sights since, and when I came back from Europe in '46, but found a seriously ill father, and that changed everything. You play the cards the way they flop on the table, and I'm not sure whether I could have withstood the practice with all those guys in Lincoln or not. We all know we had one in particular who we miss a lot, Darrell Klink. Was an unusual. Did you ever run across Mr. Klink in your practice, sir?
No, I haven't.
He's
Sorry
one
to
of
say.
our lawyers in Lincoln, Logan County, and we have a number of really good ones. We got some young fellows that are coming up that
Yes, we do.
really comers. You meet a lot of lawyers, Cynthia, as you do go about your profession in and out of the courtrooms. Do you have any unusual experiences that come to mind real quickly?
It took me a long time when I started this job, and I've been in it. I'm in my 23rd year. And I remember when I used to sit on the stand to testify, and sometimes it would get extremely brutal. And you'd find yourself getting off the stand and being so angry with that attorney, and then they'd walk out the door and say, "Hey, you want to go have a cup of coffee?" And you'd think, really? After what you just did to me? And I learned that what happened in the courtroom stayed in the courtroom. And when you walked out that door, you were friends again and amenable to each other. And I've watched attorneys argue with each other, and I'm sure in the courtroom you're thinking, ooh. But then you do. You walk out the door and say, hey, did you watch that ball game last night? And nothing ever happened.
Yep, some of my best friends are prosecutors and police officers. Good friend of mine's a DA agent, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
The adversarial position has to be in the courtroom, and then once the doors are closed and court session's over, that's over until the next go-round.
You got it.
How would you, you're obviously of the conservative bent here. I presume then that your positions on the bench will not only be conservative, but your first and foremost and paramount interest will be following the law according to whatever the law is in the whatever case that you have.
Yes, sir. And if people don't like it, they might need to elect a new legislature or a new governor. But as a judge who would have taken an oath to the Constitution to uphold and protect it, I think that's the appropriate way to go.
In your practice, have you appeared before the appellate courts or filed briefs and so forth with the appellate at the appellate level?
Well, business model wise, that kind of thing requires travel then to Springfield or to another city where the appellate court would sit, and so I've really not done much of that. No.
Have you had any unusual clients that you have defended for whatever reason, evidence to some unusual characteristics and so forth?
Well, sure.
We don't need to get into your private practice, but
well, sure, but that's what attorney-client privilege is about, and I don't want to risk breaching that for the purpose of a funny war story. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, when you're going to have, if you get the judgeship, you're going to have to apply the law. A lot of times law is left to interpretation. As an attorney, you've had to file and look at other case law, leaving, again, it's an interpretation on what case law you're pulling up. How is your background that you have now, do you think, going to affect a judgeship on making those interpretations?
Well, in terms of legal background, understanding what it is to develop and prove a case as a prosecutor, and then understanding what it is as a defense attorney to look towards, taking a wrecking ball to one. I think that does uniquely prepare somebody to be able to better look at both sides.
Well, we have two important duties that are going to take us a break right now. Number one, we've got to get the cat out of the bag. And number two, we'll take a commercial break. Go ahead, Mr. Ash.